Thanks, Janet. I would like to give the floor to Vickie Johnson from the Kentucky Domestic Violence Association in Kentucky. Thanks for being here, Vickie.
Thank you, Kristen and Janet, and thank all of you for being here to learn more about these efforts, because we really do feel like they're so important to especially our rural families, but to all low and moderate income families. So the Kentucky Asset Success Initiative that we call Cassie, we're a statewide collaborative of regional asset building coalitions that are built around free tax preparation, but many, if not most of our programs offer some form of other asset building and economic success programs. If one of the partner agencies doesn't offer it, they will offer referrals to those in their area who do. So that might be financial education, individual development accounts, that sort of thing. So while the asset building coalitions are built around free tax preparation, they do offer other services. Here at Cassie, we centralize the grant administration. We are a VITA grantee, which I'll talk about in just a second. And we provide support to the regional coalitions, especially those who are new to providing asset building services. We have this map here to kind of show you geographically what Cassie looks like. Louisville and then northern Kentucky have their own asset building coalition, so they are not represented there. Northern Kentucky is basically the Cincinnati, Ohio metro area, but we do try to cover as much of the rest of the state as possible. So you can see our 6 different regions there. The 2 newest are the one in the far western part of the state that's in orange, and the northeastern part of the state, which is purple. So I'm kind of going to focus on those newer ones right now for this presentation. But as you can see, we have 120 counties in the state, and our initiative hits about 80 of them, so certainly more than half of the counties in Kentucky. Okay, so what was our catalyst for doing this work? Kentucky is a pretty poor state. 18% of Kentuckians live in poverty according to the last census information, which is higher than the national average. In fact, several of the country's poorest counties are in Kentucky, all of them in eastern Kentucky. And those counties that typically show up in the top 10 poorest counties in the United States, their poverty rates hover around 40%. So we have a pretty high poverty level. And a lot of those are working families. So knowing that, and knowing that up to 25% of eligible households don't claim the EITC, we felt like it was important to try to reach those households and improve the stability of families and communities. When we got involved with this, we knew that there were a lot of social service agencies throughout the state that offered free tax preparation, but we recognized that a statewide effort could have bigger impact, both in terms of the public, in terms of outreach and so on, and also with funders, that we would just have more leverage if we had a more concerted, consolidated effort. And because of that, not only have we had more leverage in terms of funding, but we've also had a lot of support with some of our state agencies. Our governor, Steve Beshear, has been a huge proponent, a huge advocate of the work that we do, and not just our coalition, but the Louisville and Northern Kentucky coalitions as well, and of EITC outreach. And we're lucky that he advocates for a state EITC program that unfortunately has been unsuccessful in getting through, but our governor certainly is supportive of the work that we do. Our community action network has also been a huge help in terms of outreach at a statewide level, and so is our Department of Community-Based Service, which operates most of the social service public benefits programs in the state.
When you said your community action network, you're talking about community action programs in the state?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, every state, for those of you who may not know, every place in the country, just about, not every place, is covered by a community action program, which really are programs that were originally part of the war on poverty from back in the Johnson administration, but they really are in touch with low-income people, so they're a great local partner to have, or they know a lot about what's going on in the community.
Yeah, that's right, Janet, and we have, a lot of our community action agencies at the local level actually host sites, but our state network of community action programs does a lot of outreach for us. publicizes all of our tax sites, fields phone calls, that sort of thing. So we have their support not only at a local level but at a statewide network level, which is really really important to our efforts. One of the big questions that I get asked is, why is the Kentucky Domestic Violence Association doing this work? Why don't we focus on domestic violence? Well, one of the reasons is we're a coalition ourselves. We're our state domestic violence coalition with 15 member programs that we oversee. And we run an economic justice program for our domestic violence programs. That economic justice program has an IDA piece. We do housing programs, financial education, training opportunities for both clients and advocates, et cetera. So we're really kind of tapped into the coalition model that way. And of course, each of our 15 member programs are really experts in these services that are available in their areas. I would never claim to be an expert on what's going on in Hazard, Kentucky, or Graves County, Kentucky, but our domestic violence programs there are experts in those communities. And of course, we believe that financially secure households are safer households. One of the big catalysts for a domestic violence agency to get involved with this is that economic abuse and economic concerns are one of the primary reasons that survivors of domestic violence either stay in relationships with abusers or return to abusive relationships. And so we feel like their economic security is really important and preventative. So that's one of the big reasons that we're involved as well. We recognize that a lot of survivors needed help with their taxes. If they've been in situations where they had been economically abused, they may know nothing whatsoever about their financial situation. And this is one way that we can not only help them understand that, but also, of course, with the tax refunds that you've heard about, provide a big financial boost. That self-sufficiency, in some cases, allows them to purchase homes if they're also involved in an individual development account program, and it just helps them become self-sufficient and hopefully live safe lives. And again, because we're a coalition, we're in a unique position to kind of bring together a network of partners that our VITA coalition, or Cassie, is required. So we've been able to network with so many agencies throughout the state that our member programs work with anyway to start doing this work in a pretty big way. So our role in Cassie, and when I say our, sometimes I mean KDVA and sometimes I mean Cassie, so I'm going to try to be clear about that. But KDVA's role in Cassie, which is our asset building network, is that we write and administer the VITA grant. You've all heard about VITA. I don't think it's been mentioned that the VITA program is also a grant program run by the IRS. I think last year there was $12 million of funding that was administered, down through local and regional coalitions. So we write that grant and do all of the compliance and administration of that. We award sub-grants to our established and large coalitions. Our newer ones, they're still sort of trying to get their feet on the ground, so I'm sure that that's something that will be happening as they become more stable. So we award those sub-grants, provide oversight. We centralize reporting to the IRS, which is important because I'm sure that most of you are also overwhelmed with various reporting requirements, so we try to take that burden off of the people who are actually doing the hard work on the ground. Again, we coordinate statewide outreach. We convene coalition meetings and work with our spec officers from the IRS, again, the stakeholder partnership education, and I can never remember the C, communication. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Communication.
So we get our spec folks from the IRS involved and have coalition-wide meetings, talk about best practices, outreach efforts, etc. We also produce an annual report which is available on our website, and that's a really important tool for our agency partners and also our funders. We utilize it here, but I also know that our regional coalitions use it to show that they're part of a larger effort. Okay, so rural Kentucky. Kentucky is a predominantly rural state, and Of the 11,471 returns that we prepared last year, 49% of those were in rural areas. One of our regional coalitions is in Lexington, which is our second largest city, Lexington and surrounding counties. But of course, when I say surrounding counties, all of those are rural. So, you know, many more people reside in rural areas, but travel to the nearest city for many of their needs, including tax preparation. And that 49%, I'm really going by the IRS's definition of rural, which is, of rural, which is areas that have less than 50,000 in population. So it's important to note that that number, there are many more people who live in rural areas than that. 2 of the 3 cities that the IRS would consider non-rural have populations less than 60,000. So I'd say they're barely non-rural, and certainly their surrounding areas are very rural and predominantly agricultural. Okay, so how do we reach our rural areas? Our coalitions, you know, they're regional, and so we really feel like they're the experts in their communities, and they use a lot of different strategies to get the word out. 2 of the newer ones that our 2 new coalitions are looking at are employer-based sites and mobile sites. And you've heard a little bit about the mobile sites, but I'll get into more detail here in a minute. We see a lot of potential with both of them and are certainly encouraging our other coalitions to kind of look at their communities and see how they might work to increase the traffic at their tax sites and their EITC outreach. So employer-based sites, as you might imagine, they are based at major employers in any given area. The EITC campaigns partner with major employers to offer on-site tax preparation. It's convenient for employees. They can go to work, get their taxes done, and go home at the end of the day all in one trip. So that transportation barrier may be eliminated in this situation. It's good for employee and employer relations. It really can be framed as a service that the company is offering to its employees. And it helps improve the financial stability of workers, which of course benefits everybody in the picture. It can, depending on the size of the employer, it could reach a large audience. If the major employers in your area are smaller, obviously the audience will be smaller. But you really just have to know what is in those communities. And one of the other things that we're looking at is that it can generate volunteers for nearby sites or for the coalition. What we wouldn't want in that situation is for a worker at an employer-based site to also volunteer at that site, because that's a confidentiality issue that we don't want to get into. But they could, if there are other sites in the area, they could be volunteers there too. So Western Kentucky, that is the Purchase Area Asset Building Coalition. It's 3 counties right now, but people come from those other outlying counties to the tax sites there. And it's one of our 2 newer coalitions. The coalition head there is the United Way in the area, and then they have partnerships also with Murray State University, the Merriman House Domestic Crisis Center, the Family Resource Centers there at the schools, the Senior Center, BB&T Bank, and then some other private businesses that donate staff time. Roles of various partners: the university hosts a tax site that's part of the coalition. The Senior Center hosts a tax site. The Family Resource Centers actually did a lot of outreach for them and also donated a lot of staff time. The site manager was an employee of the Family Resource Center. The Domestic Crisis Center hosts a tax site as well for its clients. BB&T provides a lot of funding and outreach. And then that coalition has been interesting because they've really reached out to CPAs in the area, certified public accountants, and have utilized their vast knowledge and expertise as volunteers. And so they've been really lucky that they have volunteers coming in who know most everything there is to know about tax law, and maybe just need a boost in trying to work with the model of the site. So they've done a really good job with that.